Please welcome to the stage Wildfang founder and CEO Emma McElroy.
What's up, New York? Guys, I'm not sure if you heard me. I just said, what's up, New York? I'm psyched to be here. I'm psyched that anyone gave me a microphone. That was stupid. This next conversation is going to be a real treat. I'm introducing you to two of my favorite people on the whole planet. Let me tell you a little bit about them, okay? First up, we have the one and only Arlan Hamilton. Arlan founded Backstage Capital. Does anyone in the room know what Backstage Capital is? Okay, let me tell you about Backstage Capital. Less than 10% of venture capital funding goes to founders who identify as people of color or queer, okay? Less than 10%. So what did Arlan do? Arlan started her own venture capital fund. And Arlan has now invested $7 million in 120 underrepresented founders. Yeah, exactly, okay? In addition to that, she is the host of Your First Million podcast. And I cannot tell you how happy I am that a black queer woman is teaching people how to make their first $1 million. Yeah. My second guest today is Stacy London. Yeah, exactly. And I was approved backstage. This outfit is Stacy London approved. So Stacy is the host of What Not to Wear. We all remember from that. She's also a stylist. She's a fashion consultant, a best-selling author, and most importantly, a particularly amazing human who I fucking adore. I'm the first person to swear on stage. Okay, so here's what I promise you today. These are two of the most real, authentic women I have in my entire world. You are going to get a conversation about overcoming adversity. And you are going to get it in a very, very honest dialogue. And these two come from very different worlds, and so I'm really interested to see the intersection of that conversation. So I have one more job for you guys. I need to give you the biggest welcome of the day to Stacy and Arlan.
Hi, guys.
That's really nice.
Hello.
I was scared to follow Abby and co. I was back there getting my life. I was like, that's right. I thought I was going to knock that thing off. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, baby. I feel like we are the odd couple, right? Everybody's like, what the hell are they doing together?
But I think we should, that's like a buddy cop movie or a buddy road trip movie waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody out there want to fund that? Because, hey.
You can teach me about, like, designer purses. I'll teach you how to, like...
Make money.
How to do that.
Yeah.
Keep it.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. Yes.
Exactly.
So let's kind of dive in, I guess. So this is actually really cool because I have a podcast called Your First Million. I encourage you to listen to it. Has anybody listened to it already? Yeah, that's a good amount of people. So Your First Million, we interview. Hi, Amy. Amy's the third episode of Your First Million. We interview successful people from all backgrounds to see how they made their first million-something dollars or downloads. And this is actually a live recording. Like the first live recording we're doing is to talk to Stacy about it because you have an interesting, to say the least, you have an interesting background with money in particular.
Yeah.
And this panel or this conversation is about adversity. First of all, let's just set the stage. You started off at magazines,
yes.
Vogue and Mademoiselle. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are. I did start in magazines straight out of college. I was an assistant at Vogue, where you don't make $1 million right away, ever, actually. And, I was making $18,000 a year. For a long time, and I really didn't start making money until my 30s in television. And I've always had kind of a interesting relationship with money. I come from an upper middle class background, grew up in Manhattan, and didn't really learn anything about money, truly, until I started making more of it, and then kind of had to learn quite quickly what to do with it. When I started What Not to Wear, just to be clear, I had $800 in a savings account, a passbook savings account at Apple Bank.
And that show went on to have like 10 plus seasons. To
Yes,
it,
it
right?
did.
Yeah.
And-
But you started with $800 to your name.
Yeah, in fact, the first season we had 11 episodes, and somewhere around episode 8, I was like, "Oh God, I don't think I can pay my rent. I don't even know if I have enough money for cat food." I remember thinking that I was not sure that I could pay for a frying pan that I desperately needed. I was really struggling at that point.
And then you went on you were on Oprah at one point. I'm just going to dart around, but
Yeah, dart around.
Oprah, what was that like? I know that's probably not on topic, but I have you here.
It's like being in church, you know what I mean? I remember, this was in her old studio, and I think it was the first time I was on, it was actually going to be a live episode. It was the end of her season. We were doing a fashion show about spring fashions, and because we were doing it live, we had to do a rehearsal at 6 o'clock in the morning for a 9 o'clock show, and so everybody was a stand-in, right? I mean, Oprah doesn't do rehearsal. I mean, what does she need to do rehearsal for? So it was me sitting in a chair with a stand-in next to me, and we were about to start the show, and I was sitting there waiting, and I started to cry. Because all of a sudden, I mean, just, not like sob, but I just had like tears running down my face, and I remember the cameraman going, "You okay?" And I just was like, how did I get here?
Because you were in the church of Oprah and it hit you.
I mean, I was like, I'm going to be sitting next to God. How did this happen? And, you kind of have to, you have to pinch yourself.
Yeah.
And, being on television at that time in 2002, that was the start, really, of reality television becoming a thing. And it afforded me an unbelievable career. I mean, I didn't say no to anything because I thought it was going to be this small window of opportunity, and then I had left magazines. I got fired from Mademoiselle when I was 30, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. If you haven't been fired, I highly recommend it. Really?
Slightly a privileged sentence.
Okay, I will.
Slightly,
That's fair, but I say that because you do need doors to close in order to find doors that are open. And I truly believe that if you don't have roadblocks, you really can't push through in other areas. And you may have found that in a different way, but I do think that if you don't have people saying no to you, you don't look for yeses.
Yes. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that's why, if I had as many dollars as I had no's in the last 39 years, I'd have your first million.
You probably have more than a first million, right?
Yeah. Would you do television again?
Yeah, I would. But I would do it differently.
Okay. How would you do it?
It's a different time. And I say this a lot. I think television is dying, right? A slow death, maybe, but it's definitely in a coma. And I don't know if it will be revived in the same way. It certainly can't be revived in the way of the how-to days of reality.
What about a Netflix like the Queer Eye fellows?
Well, I think that's really something, that was a big surprise, right? When I heard they were reviving Queer Eye, I thought, oh God, this is going to be a disaster. But they did it the right way.
Yeah.
They did it with a new, younger generation, and they did it on they didn't do it on a cable,
Traditional television,
right? They did it
yes.
streaming, and they took on the issues of today. They took on, racism. They took on money and disparity, and they took on homophobia, and they took on the issues that matter to a new generation.
So here's what I think, as your new agent. We're going to have you do a guest spot on the new Queer Eye. We're going to make that happen because we're putting it out into the universe. And then that will turn into a spin-off that is you coming back and working with a new group of experts.
Well, what I would like, and to put this out into the universe, is I don't disagree that there should be a spinoff, but I do think that there needs to be a show about women of my age. Thank you. And Arlan should be on it, obviously, because we need.
I think I need to be.
Let's
be
need,
honest.
because women of my age need women of your age to be our financial advisors. Okay. I truly believe that women of my age don't just feel invisible, like we used to say in fashion. We are starting to feel irrelevant in a world of technology that we do not understand. And that is causing us to have financial crises where our jobs are disappearing, we don't understand when industries are disappearing, and we don't know how to make millions anymore. And while I have had a successful career, I am starting to feel like I don't know what my future is.
Wow.
And that is the truth.
That's it. That's the pitch. Okay, let's do it. I'll co-produce it.
Fantastic, we've got this.
Co-producing credit.
And I think, I'm so happy we're having this discussion right now.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, the Riveter.
Yeah. But I truly believe that women, and this is maybe over 40, but certainly I turned 50 this year, I am starting to see that there needs to be this intergenerational mentorship where women, for the first time my age, can't just be saying, oh dear, let me help you. Just my years of experience. Our experience is irrelevant in a new world.
That's right. You've talked about that you don't think mentorship necessarily has to be an older person mentoring a younger person.
I don't think it's possible anymore.
Right.
I mean,
it's a mixture, though.
Yes, it has to be a mixture. In terms of years of experience, sure, we may be able to talk about life experience in a different way. But this is the first time we are seeing a tectonic shift between the linear path since the Industrial Revolution to now. I mean, you were born, you grew up, you went to some kind of school, whatever level of education you went to, you got a job, you got married, you had some sort of family structure, and then you worked until you died. There is literally, we don't live the same way, we don't eat the same way, we don't work the same way, we don't date the same way. Nothing is the same. Nothing is guaranteed in the same way. We are more accepting than ever of different lifestyles, and the dumpster fire that is happening in the world. I promise you, this is the death rattle of the white man and the patriarchy. It is coming. I know that you may say you don't.
Sorry, white guys.
Yeah, I mean, and you may not feel it yet, but I am in my bones. I feel it. I see it coming, and I hope they're ready for it. Oh. But what I see happening is this new world structure, which you are doing. You are the catalyst. And this, to me, is a whole new world order we have to be ready for. And I'm so excited, but I don't feel prepared. I really don't. And it's the first time that I am looking to a new generation to help navigate the second half of my life.
This is fascinating. I think we have a company, we have a television show, and a movement all in that. So as long as I can co-produce it, I'm down.
I'm all for it. I mean, listen, I want you to guide the way, because I'm willing to admit that all of these things are true for me. I'm willing to admit that I don't know the way.
Well, let's talk a little bit, though, about, because people who only know the part about you being on the show, meeting Oprah, because I've made that a point now, they may not understand the last few years, what that has looked like for you. Sure. So that context of adversity, because like you said before, we come from very different backgrounds.
We do.
We have a different world. We see things from a different lens. I think we have similar worldview, and we have different versions of adversity. But I've heard you almost apologize for your adversity, as if yours is somehow less than mine because mine.
Well, I'm aware of white privilege. I mean, I don't want to be apologist for it. I just want to acknowledge it, because I think to not do that is a grave mistake. And I also want to admit to, I don't want to discount the amount of success that I've had. You know, What Not to Wear led me to have ad campaigns for Pantene, for Woolite, for Lee Jeans, for Dr. Scholl's. And yeah, I made a shit ton of money. And it's part of I'm actually really proud of that. When I say I didn't say no to anything, I had a contract with Today Show, with Access Hollywood. I mean, I didn't say no because I was so afraid that this whole magical world was going to, the window of opportunity was going to close. But I also...
Let's talk about it a little bit too, because sometimes I've heard from, and we're family, right? We can be real with each other. There are a lot of white people here. And I have, and I talked to several, and I'm married to one, And I have often had people, whether they're white or not, but they've had more money growing up or they have means, either blatantly apologize for it or allude to apologizing for it. And I have to stop them immediately because there's so much power in your privilege. And to apologize for it is to sort of let go of that power that you have. Whether it was something that you made happen or not, you have it. And now it's, I think, your duty to spread that around, to share it. So instead of apologizing for it or feeling ashamed for it, because I do feel from some people there's like this deep shame of, I didn't do this myself and I have it. And they kind of want to shed themselves of that. I think there's a lot more power in wielding it and in sharing it and making it available for those of us who didn't necessarily have that.
I completely agree. That's why I made a point of saying I don't apologize. And also, just to be clear, I did grow up with money, but my mom lost all of her money. So all the money I made on my own. Yeah. I do not apologize for any of it. That $800 in my savings account, that was mine.
How did the events, and I don't want to bum you out, so tell me if there's anything we shouldn't talk about, but how did the events in the recent years, because you've had a lot happen.
Yeah, the last 5 years, and I have talked about this quite openly, I mean, I see no reason to kind of be like, it's nothing that I'm ashamed of. I mean, there's adversity in people's lives, and the last 5 years have been really difficult. It started with popping my hamstring in a very bizarre trainer accident, which I won't even get into. He threw me up in the air. It wasn't my trainer. It was a joke, haha. And the way he caught me, I popped my hamstring, not my cherry. And it was awkward. And I wound up needing surgery. And that was the first surgery. And then about a year later, I started having... I'd always had back problems. I had been going for steroid shots for a long time, always had kind of lower back problems. And they started to get more severe, and I wound up needing pretty severe spine surgery. My lower back is titanium. I consider that to be one of my superpowers now. But at the time, I was in so much pain that I sort of slid onto that operating table like it was home base. A sports reference that you'll rarely get from me. And I was like, fillet me like a fish. I do not care, but I cannot be in this kind of pain anymore. I wish I'd thought a little bit harder about that because the rehab was excruciating. And I have said this, I wrote an article about it for Refinery 29. One of the things is that even as I started to get better, it was an 18-month rehabilitation process. Even as I started to get stronger, I really started to cognitively understand that there was a lot of foreign material in my body. I got clinically depressed. I started to just be paralyzed with this whole concept, even as I started to be able to walk. And I had 4 different back braces. I mean, the first one looked like a jetpack. It was just no clothes worked with
Making a note for the Netflix show.
Yes, great, fantastic. But it just didn't work with anything, which was also, I mean, just everything about it was frustrating to me.
It seemed that it manifested itself, that pain manifested itself in a really, in my view, intriguing way.
Yeah.
What was that? Because you could have turned to like something, but what did you turn to?
I turned to shopping for useless things, not
And that
fun
to me
things.
is, if you, at first blush on the surface, that sounds kind of petty or
Yeah, it
trivial.
sounds stupid.
Trivial is the word.
Yeah.
But it's something that is what.
Well, it started when I couldn't really move, right? I mean, and there's only so many Netflix series you can watch, and there were only so many things that I could do. And then I started kind of living in this fantasy world of I'll buy this for the future, for when, for I'll get this because when I can dress, in high heels, or when I can have this thing, or when I can travel, or it became this sort of fantasy life of when, in the future, in the future, in the future, because the present reality felt so constricting, and it really was an interesting game that I was playing with myself, and at the time I wasn't even aware that that's what I was
It sounds
doing.
like you were self-soothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And believe me, it's like anything else. I could have been eating chocolate all day long. I could have
Been there.
Right.
Feel it.
Or I could have been doing drugs, or it's like any addiction. It was really to escape the pain
And
of the
then-
present.
You spent a lot.
Okay, I want to be clear about this. The article that I wrote about this for Refinery, they really loved that hook of that first line. The day, whatever it was, the day that I went to my accountant, the day that I stopped wearing my brace or something, was the day my accountant told me that I was going broke. The second sentence is the one that nobody seems to remember, which is like, well, I don't mean broke,
'Cause
right?
How many people
So-
know what baroque means?
Exactly.
Like baroque.
Like $800 in your passbook account still isn't broke.
That's a lot of pot pies.
Right. And that's not even what I meant by broke. Okay? So, in context, I really felt afterwards very unhappy with the way that hook sentence was perceived. My accountant was like, stop spending so much fucking money. You're being stupid. But in context, I wasn't going to be homeless. I wasn't even, close to that. He was like, stop buying shoes. Big fucking deal. He was just saying, stop it. And
How did you stop? How did you stop yourself? If someone is going through something like that right now where they're addicted to something to help them make it through, how did you stop that?
because my accountant said stop.
Someone had to come in and tell you that you were
Right.
being
He was
a
like,
mess.
check yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm not an idiot. I was like, wow, that was the reality check I needed. Somebody who was managing my money said, you are making a mistake here. And I thought, oh, okay, this is stupid.
Right.
And there were other things going on. I was screwing up in my relationship, which ended. I mean, there were a lot of things that I was breaking. And it sort of took something as realistic as, I'm not working, and I'm spending my money. Stop.
Yeah.
And I really took that seriously. I started to make an effort to get really strong. I could do 100 burpees, P.S. I was holding a 3-minute plank, shut up.
I can't do that, and I have had no surgery.
Right? I mean, I was like killing the game. And then my dad got really sick. And I swore to myself, listening to those ladies before us, like, self-care, self-care. I was going to take care of myself, but I stopped doing everything and anything to take care of my father. And I spent all of last summer taking care of him with my stepmom and my sisters, who were both working when they could, but I stopped doing anything. And he was so sick. And then he died. And I was working on a project that I had to go straight back into. I was committed contractually. I had to travel with someone that I was styling, and I was eating 2-pound bags, that's the party size, of caramel M&Ms.
That is a party.
It really is, every day. Every day, took them with me to Paris, took them with me to London, took them with me to LA, every day. I will just say, in Paris, we were staying in really fancy hotels. I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I was so sad that I was like eating them in bed and I fell asleep like with them in my mouth. I woke up to an M&M massacre. I'm not sure they're ever going to let me
These
back.
scenes write themselves.
I don't know if they're ever going to let me back in that hotel. It was terrifying. But again, that kind of grief is something that I have never experienced. I mean, my dad was my biggest cheerleader and if not my best, certainly one of my closest friends. And losing him set me back. And I just, that was in, this Sunday, it'll be a year.
1 year. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
And I've gained 30 pounds and haven't worked at all.
Yeah.
So now I am starting to lose money.
Well, so the next chapter then is what happens next, right?
Right.
And I think,
well, that's why I'm here with you.
Yeah,
Because
well-
now we're going to make a show, and we got to make some millions.
yeah. I think we could definitely have that conversation and
But could we? I just want to go back
Yes.
a little bit because this has been a lot about me.
Right.
And I do want to talk about where you started because Emma, who introduced us, told me all about you before I did any research or heard
Yeah.
anything about you. And she said that when she met you, you were sleeping in the San Francisco airport.
Actually, she met me before that happened. We've known each other for several years. She was one of my first investments after I got the fund. Yes, Wild Fang.
But she said that you really
But
didn't have a place to live.
I was broke. That's what you call broke.
Real broke.
And
Like no chicken pot pie.
yeah, I mean, no, it was based on the amount of chicken pot pies I could make happen for myself. But yeah, I grew up kind of in a place where we didn't have money, and so I started working really young, and then grew up and also didn't have those tools to figure out what I was supposed to do. And I think a big part that we don't talk about a lot is credit. Yeah. So I started off with bad credit at 18, impossibly. And the reason that happened is this happens in a lot of, it happens in some black families, and I won't make it as blanketed as that, but in some black families, your credit is used before you're really supposed to be using credit by a family member. And that's what happened in my case. And I was given the choice of, you can wipe the slate clean, or you can wipe the slate clean, but you'll have to file charges against this person in your life. And that was not an option for me at 18. So started off, I think that's a big part of it. I think credit is something that we don't talk about. And then just not having the tools and never really, and also being a little odd, as an odd kid. I talk about that more in my upcoming book, It's About Damn Time, that's available in pre-order right now.
Everybody in this room pre-order.
I would love you to. I'd love you to pre-order. It's About Damn Time. Yes.
And also because pre-orders do go towards the bestseller list, just
They do.
FYI.
For that first week, they count. So I have an entire episode of Your First Million that talks about it because I didn't know that before. But anyway, a lot of years passed. Two books on the bestseller list, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of things happened. Years passed.
I know you managed a Norwegian punk band, which I thought was
Yeah, I tour managed a Norwegian pop punk band in my early 20s because that's normal. I don't know why you're giggling, but that's what we all do. And that's a whole thing. That was a whole experience. And basically almost everything that I've done in my kind of adult life, I've built. I didn't see it, and I wanted it, so I built it. And it was always in a wonky way and never really in a financially secure way because I didn't really start off that way or know how to do it. And then all of the experiences and experience that I had sort of converged one magical moment. And now the work that I do at Backstage, where we invest our money, the money that we raise little by little, and our resources and our time, that work where those investments are in underestimated founders, as we call them. So people in this room, 130 plus now.
I mean, can we just get
No.
like a round of applause? No. 130 underestimated. That's
Yes,
just the beginning.
There is one straight white male-led company in the mix, and we.
How'd they get there?
I was feeling charitable that day. But that work that we do and that I get to do every day is every bit of that experience coming together. And it is truly what I feel is my calling at this point, and spreading that and however way we do that. And it took, I call it 2.5 years, but it was probably 3-4 years of trying to get that first $25,000 check. And every moment of it since then has been an uphill climb. But it's also worth it in every measurable way.
I just wanted to say that one of the things that Emma said to me was that when she met you and you said, I'm going to do this, she said, either this woman is totally going to do this or she's batshit crazy.
That sounds like Emma.
Right. And that it was one or the other. And that one of the things that we were talking about was this idea that being a Black queer woman, there was this 50-50 chance. And that if you had been a straight white male, somebody would have invested that $25,000 right away. And that's the presumption that needs to change.
Yeah, and I think when people hear that, especially straight white men, they're like, where's my check? Because I don't get that by walking in the room like this. But there is certainly, like we talked about before, this hierarchy and these odds that change in your favor depending on what your background is. And it's up to us to really take advantage of where we land on the privilege scale, because I certainly have privilege. We all have, everybody has some sort of privilege. Just take advantage of it and use it opportunistically. That's the takeaway from it. I wish we had more time because I wanted to do audience Q&A.
I know. I mean, well, we've got a minute.
Yeah, we have a minute.
Let's somebody ask us a question.
Quickly have a from
Me?
Mademoiselle?
Well, a new editor came in, and they usually clean house. But the woman who fired me ran Mademoiselle into the ground and closed it, so fuck her. One more. We have 30 seconds.
Do we have one more? I don't know if we can follow that. Yes. How did I get out of the airport? I certainly walked. Thank you for asking. Once I had that first investment capital, the same angel investor, Susan Kimberlin, I'll say her name forever, gave me an additional amount of capital to start the actual office of it. So that day, I've never had to be homeless or without a place to live since that moment in September 2015.
All right. What? Last one?
Yes. Yeah, so the advice for any woman who's walking into a VC room, so you've probably heard this before, and it probably sounds trite, but I'll always go back to it. And it is to be authentically yourself. And there's even conversation happening right now on Twitter about this, because for some women that is just not easy to do. But to me, I was that person. The same person 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I hopefully will be the same person in a few years with a little bit more wisdom and experience. But
that's what I'm here for
yes,
the show.
But there's absolutely no check or amount of money that is worth losing dignity, losing sleep, losing who you are to get in that moment. And the times where I have strayed from that core thinking have been the ones that they haunt me today. They are the most difficult people to work with because I slightly changed that core belief. So my advice is to be you, stay true to yourself, and sort of recalibrate and refurbish what your leverage is, because it may be different than what you think it is. That's it. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.